Well, I'm going to go ahead and get started. My name is Jasmine Bryan. I'm with the University of New Mexico, and we're going to be talking about why go out of state. And in particular, we're going to be talking about WUI, the Western Undergraduate Exchange. Who knows what WUI is already? Great. So hopefully I'll be able to fill in maybe a little bit more information than what you have. This is sort of new this year for me, and giving my out of state, I started with pictures across the United States. It's sort of scenic, and it's just something to think about. We live in a great country. There are lots of different parts of it, lots of things to see and do, and you have choices. And sometimes I worry that high school students are thinking about who's going to let me in. But we can't let you come to our school if you don't apply. So in a lot of ways, you really are in the driver's seat, and there's a lot of choices for you. So let's get in here. Let's see if we're lucky and this works. So I start with a review. These should be pretty easy to you. We have 9 UC campuses in California. Do you want to yell out a UC for me?
UC Davis.
UC Davis.
UC Santa Barbara.
UC Santa Barbara. UCLA. So you get the idea. 9 of those. We have 23 Cal States. What's a Cal State nearby?
Sac State.
Sac State. Chico. What's one in Southern California?
San Diego.
San Diego. So you got the idea on that as well. There are 112 community colleges. What's your closest community college? Folsom. Okay. And then 75 independent, or you might know them as private colleges. Yell out some private colleges in California. Pepperdine, Stanford, OP, great. So you got the idea. In California, there are 107 four-year options. These are the 2-year options, community college. So there are 107 four-year options. Who feels 107 is plenty of options? It's a lot of choices. I always say, if I went out to dinner with friends, there are 107 entree choices. It would take me forever to decide, and everyone would be really hungry and annoyed with me. So 107 is a lot of choices, but across the United States, there are actually over 3,000 options. If you only consider your options in California, you're actually considering less than 5% of your options. Who feels where they go to college is a big decision? I do. You're going to be there for 4 years. What big decision about your life do you want to make and only consider 5% of your options? So students, you should be congratulating the parents that came with you today because they're considering other options. That's why you came to this presentation. But there really is 95% of your options outside of California. So who feels it can be scary to go out of state? I always raise my hand. What if I don't like it? What if I don't know anybody? What if it's hot? What if it's cold? What if I don't like the food? I'm not going to know where things are. It's true. But it can also be really rewarding. First of all, more options, right? 95% of your options are outside of California. More majors. There are majors that don't exist in California that you can find at universities outside of California. One of my favorite actually is the national perspective. Who wants to do a study abroad when they're in college? No? Okay, I'm sure there's students. You're not thinking about doing a study abroad, going to another country. Really educational experience. Why do people do a study abroad? It's audience participation time. Why do students do a study abroad? Widen your view of the world. Exactly. Learn about other cultures. Leaving California widens your view of the world. We are kind of different in California. I am a Californian. I've lived here since I was 6. I kind of consider myself a native. But just leaving the state does give you more of a national perspective. And I have put my money where my mouth is. Both my children are on the East Coast right now. They're experiencing a very different environment. But I feel that I know they're going to come back to California, that they will have an easier time in finding jobs because they will have more of a national perspective than someone who stayed in California. And of course, there's other food. Food's always very important. Do I have a theme? Who's had a beignet before? Where do you have beignets? That's right. But you can also get them at Disneyland. Students like to point out to me, and I'm like, oh, you're right. Oh, in Sacramento too? I know they are other places, but it's nothing like having it at Cafe du Monde. So what if I get lonely? What if I get lost? What if I don't make friends? And what if I get sick? Yes, all very good points, but think about this. If you are ever thinking of living outside of California, college is the best time to do it because there's so much support. There's a health center to go to if you get sick. There's someone to help you find a place to live. There are activities for you to meet friends. If you decide after you graduate from college, okay, now I'm going to leave and I'm going to go to New York, I'm going to Seattle, no one helps you to find, a place to live, to make friends. If you go to that HR, all they're going to do is sign you up for benefits. They're not helping you find a doctor. So college is a great time to strike out. There's so much more support for you. This is from a blog on our website, Kara. I grew up in virtually the same place my whole life, so I wanted to change. After receiving a scholarship to get in-state tuition at UNM, I decided that's where I wanted to be. Who's lived in the same place their whole life? So yes. My best experience so far has been residence life. I was so nervous about sharing a room with a total stranger in a hall with more total strangers, but everyone has been so nice. Very, very typical. Everybody's afraid of what I don't like my roommate. What is this going to be like? Generally, it does work out. So usually if you can get past the fear, the change in location, it's money. Okay, I can see there could be a good reason for you to go out of state, but how are we going to pay for this? Who feels it costs more to go out of state? Who feels it doesn't cost more? What I love about the question, everybody's right. It can cost more, but it doesn't necessarily cost more. So we're going to start with talking about the cost of attendance. What do you pay for when you go to college? So room and board, that can cost more out of state. It doesn't necessarily. From what I've been hearing, and probably you from your friends and neighbors, living in San Francisco, going to San Francisco State, going to UC Berkeley can be very expensive. I can't believe what they're paying for the room and board. So it really doesn't have as much to do with in-state and out-of-state as more city and rural or suburban. So it's not necessarily going to cost you more for room and board, except it's always true, can't beat the price of living at home. That is cheaper. But outside, if you are going to have the college experience and live on a campus, in-state or out-of-state is not necessarily going to be more or less. Traveling to and from college, yes, it can cost more, but not necessarily. University of Nevada, Reno, they have a table right next to the University of New Mexico down at the college fair. They're very close. They're just across the border. So they're probably less expensive transportation-wise than Southern California. With my kids on the East Coast, I just look in advance to get their tickets. So if you buy your tickets far in advance, it's not necessarily that much more than staying in state. Books, that's going to be about the same. Personal expenses, I always tell students, we're hoping you're buying shampoo, laundry detergent, toothpaste. That's not going to really cost more. So the biggest one up there mostly is tuition. So first, private colleges do not have in-state and out-of-state tuition. They cost the same. So if you went to Stanford, you don't get a discount being from California versus if you were from New York. So if you're looking at a private college outside of California, it's not going to matter. There's no in-state and out-of-state tuition. Only public schools have in-state and out-of-state tuition. But there's programs such as, ta-da, that's my big segue for Woolie. The Western Undergraduate Exchange, these states have gotten together and they've agreed to give each other students a discount on the out-of-state tuition. So one thing I'd like to point out though is that it's only public schools that participate because they're the only ones that have in-state and out-of-state tuition. But not all the schools within California participate. For example, UC Berkeley, do you think they participate? No, but UC Merced, yes. So if you go, I used to give out the URL, but it's just Google Woolie and you will find it. You can find the 150 participating schools. It was founded in 1987, largest program of its kind in the United States. The Woolie Rate, you get 150% of the in-state tuition. So there are some, so just for example, if the resident tuition was $10,000, you would be paying 1.5 times or $15,000. Do keep in mind though that a school can limit it by major. They can have an application deadline. They can want certain grade, GPA, test scores. They can give out a limited number of them. So there is fine print when it comes to WUI, and you need to check with the school to find out what is the fine print for that school. So really important to take a look at those. At UNM, we give out, is for all majors. We have an unlimited number. And what we're looking for basically is a 3.0 and average test scores. I think I have a slide later that will actually have the stats. At UNM, if you have a 3.0 and a 22 ACT or an 1100 SAT, you actually get in-state tuition. So that's why I love talking about WUI, because we have the best WUI program. So you're actually paying in-state, it's about $7,000 a year. Okay. Also, colleges do have institutional aid to give to students. There's lots of different types of financial aid out there to make it affordable for you. Families with good incomes can qualify for scholarships and financial aid. It's hard as a parent to let your child apply to something that you don't know you can buy. We kind of think if I was shopping for a car, I know if I have a budget to buy a used car, a very, very used car, or if I'm going to go buy a Mercedes, right? You have a budget in mind. With college, it's a bit trickier because until you go through the process, find out the merit scholarships, if you get a WUI scholarship, what type of financial aid you receive, you don't know what it's really going to cost you. So it's sort of taking a leap of faith. It's not a bad idea to sit down as a family and say, this is what we feel we can afford. Let's go through this. We will compare financial aid awards at the end and see where we are. But I know as parents, it's a little bit hard to let your child look at something that you're thinking, I can't pay that. We call it the sticker amount, that full price. But with financial aid, it can make a big difference. My children are on the East Coast. I am paying less for them than if they attended a UC. So just sort of to give you an example. Okay, moving along. California is very impacted. No surprise, right? We've heard about this. It can take more than 4 years to graduate from a school in California because of impaction. Generally, most of your out-of-state schools, they're not impacted. You can live on campus all 4 years. At UNM, you can live on campus all 4 years. You can graduate in 4 years. So that's something else that can help make the cost less. If you're going to have to pay 5, 6 years of tuition, that definitely costs more. You not only save tuition dollars, but the student can start working sooner. Yeah. Always important. And again, just about financial aid, I know some parents just feel they won't qualify, but sometimes there are schools that won't even give you the merit amount. They want to know that you applied for financial aid. So I always encourage, and you also don't know if things will change in your family. So it's just apply for financial aid, go through the process. And I highly encourage visits. If you're visiting Aunt Sally in Arizona, see if there's a college nearby and go and visit. Even if you aren't necessarily thinking of that particular school, maybe you'll hear something about that tour that makes you know, like, oh, I like this thing about this school. I want to find another school that has this. And I also encourage you to bring younger siblings. I'm so glad I brought my daughter when we were looking for my son, because then when we looked for my daughter, I didn't have to go back to those schools. She knew which of those she liked and which she didn't. And frankly, it didn't cost us that much more to have her come with us. So I'm going to fly through my slides. Oh, I'm doing well on time. Any questions about WUI? And I was going to fly through some questions about, or some slides on the University of New Mexico as an example of an out-of-state school. So we are a public flagship university with about 20,000 undergraduate students located in the heart of Albuquerque. We are a Tier 1 research university. In California, the UCs are Tier 1, the Cal States are not Tier 1. There are only 115 universities across the United States with Tier 1 status. It means the highest level of research is happening on that campus. So we're very proud of that designation. We have over 200 majors and programs. We're Division I in the Mountain West Conference. These are our top 10 news stories for 2016. I just love the diversity, forecasting volcanic eruptions, new DNA sequencing, hidden galaxies, the ancient mammoth, housing the homeless population. So lots of different things happening on our campus. Well, that's where New Mexico is. In case you weren't too sure, it's not that far away. I actually live in Alameda, so I fly from Oakland. It's a 2-hour, 15-minute nonstop flight. On the other end, we are 5 minutes from the airport. Really great airport. It's very easy to get to. There is an International Balloon Fiesta that takes place each October. The mountains are very close by. You can actually ski within 45 minutes of campus. We have our own medical school, law school, school of engineering, business, architecture, a film program. You can get housing all 4 years. This is pretty typical of your out-of-state schools. We're very used to in California where it can be hard to get the housing. We have lovely, you can even get student apartments right from your freshman year. Admission is easy. There is no essay, no paragraph about your favorite teacher, counselor. It really takes you 15, 20 minutes to apply. You can apply at the end of your junior year, so you can start your senior year already admitted. When you apply, choose the pay later option, send me an email, and I waive your application fee. So yes, you can apply for free. Also, graduate in 4 years, your last semester is tuition free. And that's me. So I will be at the college fair, but I can answer any questions about out of state, about WUI, about UNM. Any questions? Yes.
Transfers, we came in late, so.
Okay.
Can transfers do the WUI?
So you need to look at the schools at UNM. You can do the WUI, but keep this in mind. If you are a transfer and you do the WUI at UNM, for example, you can only get it for 2 years. So I always say sometimes students go to community college first because I don't know what I want to major in, it's less expensive. I don't think of any class as being not important, even the general education, because sometimes you come in and you're like, oh, I'll just take this class, it's going to fulfill my general ed, and you fall in love with it. And so if you can have all of your classes taught by professors who have the highest level degree in their field, you might find out you're excited about something. And then you get the full 4 years of the WUI. But yes, you can get the WUI at UNM, but you have to look school by school. Yes?
So can you explain one more time, how do you apply for WUI?
That's a great question. How do you apply for WUI? So it depends on the school. At UNM, there's no separate application. You apply for admission, we see you're from California, we automatically consider you for the scholarship and we let you know whether or not you get it, whether you qualify. At some schools, there is a separate application process. So that's why it's a little bit hard to tell about WUI. There are 150 schools. Each school can have their own process. But if you Google WUI and you go to the WICHE site, you can see what are the rules for each of the institutions. Yes?
So if you're selected for the WUI, does it go for all 4 years if you attend 4 years, or do you reapply every year?
At UNM, it's automatically renewed as long as you maintain a 3.0 grade point average and full-time, which is 15 units per semester. Great questions, but you do need to check with each school. I would think for most schools there's just a GPA requirement, but and you get to keep the scholarship. Yes?
In New Mexico, how do you get in-state residency?
So you can get in-state residency, and you need to be there for 12 months. There are a number of steps you can go through, having a bill in your name, like a water, electric bill, registering to vote, getting a driver's license. But you can declare residency while you are a student, and it takes 1 year. And if you want more than that, I can talk to you afterwards and point you to some sites on our website.
But really, it's the summertime where you gotta cover your.
Right. You need to be right. Other questions? Okay. Oh, yes.
So if you are selected, you don't know what type of scholarship you're going to get for any school, right? I mean, until they accept you. You don't get a breakdown on what you're going to receive, right? I mean, you can.
Right. So many schools give out the merit scholarships earlier. So at UNM, starting in October, we will start letting students know which merit scholarship they qualify for. Other schools will do that as well. At the point of admission, they will let you know merit scholarships. Generally, financial aid doesn't happen until more February and March. And so some schools might not tell you what you qualify for until then. So I know it's hard. It's a long time to wait for some schools. So in general, it's good to have a range of schools in terms of will I get in, but also a range of schools in terms of whether I can afford it. But for example, I can usually talk to most students, and if they tell me their numbers, I can get a pretty good idea of your chances. At UNM, for example, we do recalculate the GPA. We don't include PE, religion, or art. So, but I can get a sense. If you have a 3.5, chances are we're going to recalculate you with above a 3.0. Okay? Yes?
So not all colleges, like, you can apply for WUI, basically?
So of the 150 colleges, some of them you will need to do a separate application, but you have to ask them. But they first have to be, it is true, not all schools within California that are public are WUI schools. And in my example, UC Berkeley, they're not WUI, but UC Merced is a WUI school. Yes?
You may have touched upon this before, but there's two questions that come to mind.
Okay.
First is the college application for an out-of-state college.
Okay.
If you could touch upon what they're looking for in your case, you
Okay.
said that they're not looking for the essay part. But what do they look for? Are the
Okay.
criteria different based on where you're
So-
geographically located? Second part of the question is the financial aid part. What does that matrix look like?
Okay. So in terms of admission, what are the colleges looking for? It really depends on the college. Have you heard of the term holistic review? It's where you're looking at the whole student, you're looking at the essay, their activities, etc. UNM is not holistic. We look at the application, their high school transcript and test scores, and that's it. We actually do not ask about what clubs, what positions you've held. We're really just looking at your grades in your classes and your test scores, and that's it. So just as, you know, different colleges within California have different procedures, different colleges outside of California. We have our own application. So I know it would be nice if we were on the Common App, but frankly, the Common App's a lot of work. I used to do testing on the Common App, and I'd have to make up fake ones. It's a lot of work to fill out the Common App. And I was creating fake ones, you know, Scooby-Doo, Snoopy. So I really understand what it's like for students to go through that. But our applications, really, it's 15 to 20 minutes. It's a very simple application. We're mostly just looking at the transcript and the test scores. In terms of financial aid, we look at the FAFSA. So that's mostly what we are considering. There are schools both in California and outside of California that in addition could ask you for the CSS profile. CSS profile, has anyone filled out a CSS profile? No, it's a lot more work, kind of like the Common App. FAFSA is more straightforward. You just have your taxes ready and you have to say line by line. It's going to ask you some questions. And it's, you know, no one likes filling out taxes. That's what it feels like when you fill out the financial aid forms. But I know it gets me something at the end, so it's something that I do. Did I answer that? Any more questions? If you want to ask anything individually, you're welcome to come up afterwards too. Thank you for your time.